So these are go over some basic concepts. The landscape design can really reduce the vulnerability of your house and your property. And there are no fireproof plants, but there are plants that have less flammable than others. So just the species selection that you go with, the structure and planting, the maintenance, and the types of mulching that you also have in your yard will all go into making your home have less flammability around your house. So the immediate ignition zone around your house is 0 to 5 feet, and this is the most important area around your house to make it less flammable. You want to make sure that your decks have no leaves on them. You don't want to have any firewood stacked up against your house or under your deck. You want to make sure there's no leaves on your roof or in your gutters. You want to make sure you have screens in the, I don't know what they're called, the eaves of your house, so that if embers are flying, they can't go up in the eaves and catch your attic on fire. And these are all of the 0 to 5 feet is the most important part around your house. And then we go into the intermediate zone, and this is from 5 to 30 feet. And this is where you'll see more shrubs and more trees, and you'll also have some more rocks around your house, and which are all good. And you want to keep this area very clean as well, because if things in that area start to catch on fire, then it will lead into the 0 to 5 feet. And all of this is considered defensible space. So the more defensible space you have around your house, the easier it is for the fire department to protect your house if there's a wildfire. And then we go into the extended zone, which is from 30 to 100 feet. And this is, you're mostly your trees and your shrubs and your other fuel loads, like your downed trees that you were speaking about, and your debris piles and your stacked firewood. And because we're in the mountainous region, our extended zone is from about 30 feet to 200 feet. And that's because of the slope. When you have steep slopes surrounding your house, fire tends to run up the slope. And so you're going to need more space to be defensible. So if you have very steep slopes around your house, you're going to want to keep your extended zone further away, and you're going to need to keep it more tight. And so we'll go into some species selection that grow without large amounts of combustibility, the downed branches, the needles and leaves. Open, loose branches are good to have on your trees because it keeps it from the fire climbing up. You want low sap and low resin, so maybe stay away from the conifer species that have those are very combustible. You want some trees that are slow growing, don't have much maintenance, and you don't have to prune that often. And you always want to keep your grass short and close to the ground. And here are some with the low flammability and high flammability. The hickories, persimmons, we don't have much of around here. White oak, red maple, yellow poplar, and green ash. And then the things that are highly flammable are white pine, red cedar, American holly, and Virginia pine. Also, things that are highly flammable are the rhododendron and the mountain laurel, which we have a lot of also. And here are some smaller trees and shrubs. The alder, devil's walking stick, which I don't typically want in my yard because it's stabby. Flowering dogwood, witch hazel, red mulberry, and elderberry. Yeah, here's some more of what to avoid. Of course, we're all going to have these in your yard, but these are things you want to keep not right up against your house. The rhododendron, the mountain laurel, the holly, the dog hobble, and the wax myrtle. And we can also talk about ladder fuels, and that's when you have these plants, say, right next to a tree where there's no space in between them, because if those start catching on fire and they're just growing up and up and up, then the smaller shrubs that are on fire will then make the large trees on fire, and you don't want to get a canopy fire where the fire is then now in the tops of the trees and not on the ground. And here's some flowers with low flammability. Hostas, hydrangeas, jack in the pulpit, Miss Flower, jewelweed, fire pink, Joe Pye, Christmas fern, and Carolina phlox. And here's some more pictures of the spacing that we went over. And so you see within the first 5 feet of your house, you don't really want to have any plants. Keep it to a minimum. And then in the intermediate zone, you can have your trees clumped a little bit more together, but try to have the canopy 18 feet apart. And then as you move further, you can have them 12 feet apart. And then in the 60 to 100 or 200, you can have your tree canopy 6 feet apart. And you want to make sure you always cut and remove your dead dried limbs and dispose of all the plant litter as it builds up. So when you start getting your big piles of your stuff, either take it to the landfill, or you can, if you have a good area, you can burn it. If it's a low fire day, you can burn your brush. It's allowed.
Or mulch it.
Or you can mulch it.
But you're saying you should mulch it away from your house.
Mulch it away from your house, yes. And then trim your grass, and then keep all of your vegetation away from the power lines and the chimney, just so less fire hazard. We've gone to a lot of fires where the trees are hitting the power lines, causing them to arc, and then catching the ground on fire. And prune your trees to 10 feet above the ground. This helps with the ladder fuel problem, with the fire climbing higher and higher. And these are just some proper pruning techniques for when you're cutting your branches on your tree. We could go into that more later if anyone has questions on that. And your leaf management. Dispose of all of your leaves seasonally, it's going to be fall soon, and I know trees in my neighborhood have started to even drop leaves already. You want to blow them away from your house as much as you can, and definitely make sure they're off of your roof and out of the gutters, because most people forget to get up on the roof. If you don't typically see all the way around your roof most of the time, and you definitely don't see inside of your gutters. So just every year, once you think all the leaves are done falling, or it's a good time to just get up on the roof and blow them all out. Most people like shredded bark for their yard and for their landscaping, but this poses a problem because it dries out and it can catch on fire, and also if you mulch, it's organic and it can combust and just start on fire. And so you want to have, if you have mulch, you want to have it 3 to 5 inches deep and no deeper than that, because the deeper it gets, the warmer it gets, and the more it can combust, and then your yard will just spontaneously combust and catch on fire. And pine straw, a lot of people use pine straw. Burlingame is bad about using pine straw. It's one of my pet peeves. Every spring when they put it out, I'm like, come on guys. Don't do it when I'm home. Pine straw is very flammable. It's always dry. That's what it is. It's dried pine needles. So when you put it down, it's immediately dry. And when it catches on fire, it just burns up really fast. So I would say stay away from the pine straw. And then hardscaping is your best option. It is more expensive, but if you're going to have any sort of mulch around your house, this is the best option, because then that gives the 0 to 5 feet, the most immediate part around your home. There's nothing to burn there. And so if you're gonna put anything, I would say put the rocks, because then you have nothing to catch on fire right up against your house. And this is just some price comparisons of mulch. Of course, rock is going to be more expensive than the pine straw and the shredded bark, but you also don't have to put rocks down as much as other mulch. You have to remulch like once every year. Every other year, the rocks you can get away with without putting more for a lot longer. And here's some pros and cons of of stone landscaping, which we just basically went over. You don't have to reapply it as often. You can pick which kind of rocks you want to use. It doesn't decompose. Yeah, and it doesn't, because it's not organic, you don't have the bug problem, and you don't have termites coming up close to your house either with rocks. Here are just other landscaping ideas that would help keep fire away from your house. And this is a nice water feature that you can see. There's a nice pine forest behind you, but then you have the waterway coming down, which gives the firefighters also, it's a fire break before it gets to your house. And so if the pine stand was on fire, we could also burn off the back of we can put it on fire purposefully so that if the fire is coming up the back of the hill, once it gets to the part that's already been burned, there's nothing else for it to burn to come to your house. And when we have the defensible space that is the rocks, it gives us a place to work where we can make sure that the fire doesn't come back towards your house. Stone gardens. And propane tanks. Propane tanks are hard because we all have them, and if you can't bury your propane tank, the best thing to do is to not really have it surrounded by lattice or anything, because that allows the leaf buildup to get in there. And then once the leaves get in there, if an ember were to get in there, it's going to burn up all the leaves and burn up your propane tank. So if you can have your propane tank out in the open, it's best, so then the leaves blow away. They don't all congregate in there and get all full. But the best option, if you can, is to bury it underground. We know that's not always possible, but if it is, that's the best way to do it. Here's some more options. Yeah, boxing it in traps all the leaves in there. And that's about it. Do you guys have any questions?
What about mosses? Do they dry out? It seems like moss close to around homes.
I would say moss typically stays wet. And so I would say that moss is good. Like it's not bad and it's not good, because it usually stays pretty moist. And so I don't think moss is much of an issue.
And I assume most of us have compost piles. Those don't combust easily, do they?
I actually don't know too much about compost piles, but I would say it's close to mulch, like the same process as it's organic matter breaking down, and that creates heat. And so I'm sure it could combust, but as long as it's away from your house, and maybe keep low-hanging shrubs and branches out of the pile, so if it were to catch on fire, it's not going up into the trees. Like keep it in its own little area, away from stuff that can catch on fire.
You turn it regularly.
Yeah.
You turn it regularly.
And if you turn it regularly, then it's not creating all of the heat in the middle. Yes,
And do you do risk assessments for communities?
we do.
Like a community such as an HOA could call you up and
Mm-hmm.
you could go through the community, assess each of the homes
Mhm.
individually, and then say, this is your rating, because when you're talking about a home
Mm-hmm.
at risk or the physical space, you're saying how the fire department can defend your home
Yes.
from being burned down. And
Yep.
they're gonna rate your home, correct?
Mm-hmm. And then we'll give you all of the tips to make your score higher.
Right, such as gutters and
Mm-hmm.
building materials, because I know Kathy and I worked on our HOA's guidelines to get rid of, not get rid of building homes with wood siding, but give people options, because we did give them options to use composite siding versus wood siding,
Mm-hmm.
because that was one of the problems in options besides wood decking, because of the problem with fire going under the decks,
Mhm.
underneath the homes and stuff like that, and underneath the eaves and getting sucked into the soffits and stuff like that. So we did that, and also wood shakes and risk of homes being built. You know, insurances aren't covering wood shakes really anymore. But they do have composite shakes now that are made of metal or wood. They look like wood. So we've put those things into our covenants and stuff that have adapted our HOA. And it was hard because people only wanted wood, all natural, blah, 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 blah. And we told them, you know, it's also high maintenance. Very, you know, and older people and fixed incomes and stuff like that, where, you know, people were just getting, it was just becoming a nightmare. Especially living in this tropical type rainforest.
Yeah.
It was becoming a problem to do these maintenance things. So we expanded from maybe 8 pages to 87 pages of recommendations, I think, and in reference things like fire adaptive communities and FireWise and dark night sky, whatever it was called, dark sky communities, trying to enlighten people, not give them guidelines and stuff like that. It was really not to tell them what to do, but just give them education and purpose. So,
How long ago did you do that, and how receptive do you feel like your community's been?
we did it about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and receptive is, you know, they don't live here, so it's, and we live on the Chattooga River, or the headwaters, and what's happening is they're taking notice, I think, because they're saying, why is the water chocolate every time it rains? And it's happening above us. And what's happening is Kathy gets involved with these water testing centers, and she's trying to get people involved and trying to get them to be aware of their environment and not cut all the vegetation down to the river, because we own to the river, even though the state has these regulations and it's a protected stream. And all of this, it doesn't do any good if they're just going to mow it and herbicide it, and I mean, it happens, and we try to educate them and enlighten them, and it's kind of hard because you go walking along the little trails and stuff, and we have, I don't know how many miles of trails all the way to the waterfalls and stuff, but it's kind of disheartening when you see erosion going from above where all the buildings and stuff are going in, and when it rains 3 to 4 or 5 inches, everything turns chocolate. And everybody goes, well, what's going on here? And we said, well, you got to do your part, and then you teach people above you to do their part. And then whatever happens downstream, trying to protect the waterway down there too. And so it's receptive is kind of, what do you think, Kathy?
Yeah, it's hard. We also, we don't allow topping of trees
Right.
for views, but
But we had a view, Vista View, or we didn't know this, but we're also on the Environmental Control Board, and we found out one homeowner put I forget what it's called, but he has the control of the view of the property he owns, so he can go in there and top the trees. You know, I'm an arborist, and he can go in there and just top them arbitrarily and not do good pruning practices. He can go in there and just whack them, and they can climb the trees with spikes and everything, you know, and not use really good pruning practices. And we were just shocked, and we were like, oh my gosh! And because he has the right to do that based on the whatever it's called on the
his covenant or
yeah,
easement or something.
whatever he has on the
Deed.
property, the deed on the property. We didn't know that, and that caught us off guard. And the only person that can take that off is he can do it, or the person who buys the property can take it off, but it has to benefit the person that buys the property after the person who sells it. I mean, it's really odd, and it's the only piece of property in our neighborhood that has that vista view kind of thing. Otherwise, nobody has the right to trim the trees of their neighbors in our community, just to view the mountain. And then we have these ordinances too that people can, they're not supposed to take the trees out to view, you know, of a certain size. And if they do, they are fined, but we found out through the state laws that HOA cannot impose fines. You can take a tree out, but it's only $100. And to replace the tree, you know, we can say plant a tree, but, you know, it's
It's
only
gonna
this
take,
big.
yeah, it's gonna take 50
Right,
years.
it's really odd. It's just so disheartening. We had to do that, and we had to go in there and inventory all the trees that were removed and all this stuff. And it was like, okay, you're gonna pay us $1,700, but they got $1 million more for the house because they had a view of the mountain, the white side. And
They didn't care.
They didn't care, and so it was disheartening a lot.
I did have a question, talking about pruning, you mentioned that in there, what else would you add on that?
I can go back to the picture. These are just where the right place to cut a branch off of a tree is. And like say if you want to cut the tree, you want to cut this branch off, you would start at the bottom in one spot, and then you would go back in on the top and cut down. And so this, if this were to start tearing, it would stop where you made the notch. And so then that gets the whole big branch off. And then you would go in and you would cut before the branch collar, right at the branch collar. And so that just, if you were to cut straight down, the weight of it would end up pulling the bark down and you could strip your tree. And so this is just to keep you from stripping the bark off of your tree. And not cutting too far into the branch collar and not leaving too long of a nub to where it can't heal properly. And so if you just cut, like here's a good, if you were to cut down, you cut into the branch collar, and if you cut at the side, then you cut where the branch collar is, and so then it will heal over and you won't have a big ugly scar on the outside of your tree. Yes.
I was thinking about wind.
Mm-hmm.
It must impact your guidelines quite a lot if someone lives on a windy hilltop or something like that,
Mhm.
right?
Wind and fire are not a good mixture. So the tops of mountains are more, I guess, maybe more fire prone, because if it's coming up from the bottom, it's going to run up to the top, and then when it gets windy, it's going to blow. And so your defensible space might need to be even a little bit bigger then, if you have steep surrounding, and then you also around for it being really windy up there. Yes.
I don't know if you have an update, but several years ago now, they were talking about doing a control burn in Panthertown,
Mhm.
but it's never been done. Do you know what's happening with that?
I don't know what's happening with that. You would have to contact the Nantahala National Forest, and they would know more. They're in control of those lands.
So if we're doing a risk assessment for an HOA, do you charge for that? Does the service charge for that?
Mm-mm.
No? It's just a matter of contacting.
Yep, you would contact us, and then there's another lady. Her name is Hannah Thompson, and she is in charge of basically all of the FireWise of North Carolina. And she'll come out, and if we do like the whole neighborhood HOA, every house in the neighborhood is getting assessed, she'll come out and she'll talk to everyone, and she'll go over through everything, and she'll also look at all of the fuels that are in the whole neighborhood. If it's like neighborhood land, she'll go over all of that. So like the HOA would be in charge of that, and then each homeowner would be in charge of their own land and their own landscaping. And then you go into, to be a FireWise community, everyone in the community needs to put in a few hours of community service in the neighborhood. I think it's something very small, like every one person has to do 1 hour of just helping your neighbors rake up leaves and stuff like that. But yeah, if you want to get your neighborhood involved with that, you would just talk to, I guess, whoever your HOA president is, and then call us, and then we'll get everything set up.
All right, and the phone number?
I can give you my phone number.
Or Hannah's or whatever.
I'll give you mine.
Are you for Transylvania County?
I am for Transylvania
So
County.
there's someone else in Jackson County?
There is someone else in Jackson County. Are you
Okay.
Jackson County?
Yeah.
Then you
Is-
would have to contact your Jackson County.
Is
Jackson
Hannah
County Forest Service.
Hannah is
statewide?
the whole state. There's only one of her right now. They're trying to find someone else. So she goes from all the way from the coast to all the way over here, so she's very busy. We're trying to get someone for the western 50 counties. But
Of course, when you rake leaves away, you're disturbing the firefly breeding.
yes, it's one of those things where it's like, which one is better?
It's only around your house. It's 5 feet around your house, okay?
Leave the leaves. How many FireWise communities are around the mountain area?
There's a good bit, and if they're not 100% FireWise, they're working towards becoming FireWise, which is like in your HOA rules, like when you build a house, like making the people building houses, building them with different materials, like what he was saying, and just working towards becoming a FireWise community. Because some communities, the way they were built a long time ago, might not be able to reach a true FireWise community, but they can get close, which is also, it's better than nothing.
So you can be a Bearwise community and a FireWise
Yes.
community.
And a native plant community all at the same time.
Native plant certificate, yeah.
So how much of your job is fire, or what other kind of things do you do? And I guess part of my thought is, are you noticing post-Hurricane Helene that we have some challenges or opportunities that we need to pay attention to?
Our fire season here is the fall and the spring when it doesn't rain every day. And this past fire season was not great. And that was when all of the Helene damage still wasn't totally dry yet. A lot of it was still wet. A lot of the trees didn't know they were dead yet. A lot of them could be laying on the ground and they still leafed out this spring. And so now that they've gone a whole growing season and they've realized that, oh, I'm dead now, they're all going to start drying out, and the fire danger is going to get a whole lot worse. And this is just the beginning, because there's still so much moisture in the down logs. And as the years go on, they're going to get drier and drier, and we're going to have more and more fire danger. And with climate change happening, we don't know what's going to happen, but I can only assume it's going to get worse in the next 5 to 7 years before all of the down debris is broken down or burned or gone.
So you're really focused on fire as a major
Yes.
challenge, not so much other things.
No. I mean, during the summer we do other things. We go out and we write management plans for people's land. We do like present use value assessments, and so that's if you own over 20 acres of forested land, you can get tax breaks. We do that kind of stuff. Right now, this past year, it's been a lot of just Helene damage, federal grants to get it picked up and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
If a neighborhood gets organized, is there potential for one of those grants to pay for removing the material from
So
that neighborhood?
there has been, and it should be on the Transylvania County website, of all of the things needed to do to have the people come pick up the brush.
Okay.
And I'm assuming Jackson County would have something similar, but I'm not sure.
And just, could you flip back to the plants,
Mhm.
actually the wildflowers that
The
were,
flowers, yeah.
the flowers that were less flammable?
The shrubs or just the flowers?
The flowers.
Okay.
That was it, yeah. Thank you.
Are there any with high flammability?
Flowers
ratings?
with it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think so.
I was telling her that there's on the state website, a link to a database where you can put in the plant and it tells you whether that plant is low or high flammability. Well, a lot of these things are things that grow underneath the canopy, right? So then it's a little confusing if you have all these low flammability wildflowers, but a flammable canopy. What does that mean? I guess you just have to make sure they're not pines. I think there are trees that are more flammable than others too.
Yes, that was back on
Yeah.
this page with the trees.
It's gonna have those ones close to your house.
Yeah.
Do we have red cedar here?
I don't know either. But we sure do have holly and white pine
Red pine.
everywhere.
So if we got a beautiful oak that's touching the house that was here before we were here, could I pass?
I would say you should at least get an arborist out to trim some of the trees so that they're not touching your roof. You could still have the tree, I would just get the branches trimmed so that you're not hitting the roof. Have some space in between the branches and the roof.
Because oak is low flammable. So that's a good one.
But it also keeps it, if there's another hurricane or high winds, it keeps branches from falling off and hitting the roof.
But if it's a very hot fire, then anything will burn, right?
Yes.
If you have a drought, everything's all.
Yeah.
Y'all remember 2016?
Yeah.
Everything burned, and it's, remember how Nantahala was on fire, and then Dolly up in Pigeon Forge, and all up in Gatlinburg, and Gatlinburg, and.
Table Rock in South Carolina
Yeah.
burned again.
Yes.
In the spring.
So everything is off the table then. So when you have droughts, it's the best thing to do is you can be prepared and have, these FireWise plans also have be prepared, ready, set, go, things like that, escape routes. These plans will have how to escape if your escape route is cut off, where's your secondary escape.
Yeah.
So, and that's good because your fire departments need to know that too.
So your neighborhood, your POA or HOA plans, is that a document you could share with us? Might be interesting.
I mean, they're all shareable, I guess.
I mean, if it's posted online someplace.
It's not posted online, it's just, it's just print, yeah, Kathy has access to it.
Yeah.
It's a living document, and we're always adding to it.
Yeah, we're changing it up. We're working on water quality too right now, so.
Yeah. But, because we only have one way in, really one way out.
I know.
But,
And so if we had a forest fire, it would be kind of scary.
There's a lot of communities like that. There's one way in and there's one way out, and the roads are so narrow that it's hard for the fire trucks to get down there. And fire trucks, if they know they can't turn around somewhere, they won't go down that road either.
Oh my.
And so that is also just a thought,
and
that
work-
make sure you have a good cul-de-sac where fire departments can turn around.
And working with your fire department too, to have a fire, what's it called when you have a lake, with a fire hydrant in it, what's that called?
I don't know.
The water is a siphon thing, they
Yeah.
can siphon the water out of the lake. We have one in our neighborhood where they come down. And then we had a new bridge put in that can hold up to 80,000 pounds. So the one before it was about to collapse.
So a fire truck could get,
Right now, they can get in and then they can siphon out of the lake, transfer it down into all the different homes that they catch on fire. Because there are no fire hydrants in these neighborhoods.
yeah, like access, and you guys are at the top of the mountain, and you guys are way out in the cove too, so.
Do you have fire hydrants? None? Huh. We do, but I don't know where the water comes from.
And might pull from, because you have the Whisper Lake, so it might
Yeah.
it might pull from that.
From the lake,
Mhm.
that's interesting.
Dry fire hydrants, that's what they call them. Because they're just used when they siphon out of the lake. They have a PVC pipe that goes into the lake and is pushed, debris free, and then they siphon out. So it's a dry fire hydrant, which we have.
Yeah, we would use our pump on our truck. We would connect our pump to
Yeah.
the truck pump, and it would pull the water out.
That's very interesting. Any last words for us?
I don't have any.
Yes, that was very interesting.